Hi, Mr. Daryl. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely great, and it's snowing right now as we speak. So looking at the wintry day, I thought it's like spring coming up, but
Wow.
actually it's not. It's like again -6 degree tonight or something. So yeah, it's gonna be tricky. So I'm super excited to learn more about your book today. Like you launched a new book called The Great Expectation today. So I'd love to know, like, how did you come up with the title and what's the book about before we have a discussion on that?
Yeah. So, by the way, I'm coming to you from San Antonio, Texas, and it's 80 degrees Fahrenheit here. So
Right.
we're a little bit different, but yeah. So I have been working with young adults, single, 30 to 40 years old, 30 to 40-year-olds for several years now. Actually, my daughter is a 40-year-old single, and what I was running into was a lot of just continual disappointment and anger with a lot of the kids in my group. I'll say kids, 30 to 40-year-old singles, and that disappointment kind of ranged from feelings of hurt, depression, anxiety, and so I continued to listen and take notes and talk to them about issues. And over the years, just decided I was going to put a short book together to kind of let them, read something to experience some of the things that I've experienced in my life. I've been in sales most of my life. I've traveled internationally quite a bit, so I've also seen some disappointment and things on the road that you can take and kind of put it in your thoughts,
Yeah.
and end up living a much more happier life by setting expectations. So the name of my book is Great Expectations Today by D. Tanner, and I use just the initial D as in my first name. So
Yeah, it's nice. Do you prefer like we should have expectation on the book? Like people, we have like so much expectation on our day-to-day life. Like today, like more than ever, we have so many expectations on a relationship, on our personal life, in a business career. We have like we always want more on people. We want more on materialistic things. So is that like you come across with like the more expectation we have, like a more burden we get, or the pressure we create?
yeah. I mean, it's so my groups consist of I have about 14 different groups that I counsel with and help manage, and in those groups there's about 15 to 20 people in each group. So I do this on a weekly basis, and and about 85% of the people in my group are female, uh, all nationalities, but they're meeting to talk about issues today and the issues they're dealing with in life. And yeah, so one thing I tell to the ladies, especially the young ladies, is lower your expectations. There's a comedian in San Antonio that I love to hear, and he says, ladies, when he's on stage, he says, ladies, I'm telling you today, lower your expectations. Your father lied to you. You're not a princess. You're not going to marry someone that's rich, more than likely.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can marry a family man that gets up and goes to work every day. And you're not going to marry a guy with a six-pack. He's probably got a one-pack because he works every day. So he says, you want somebody that you can sleep with at night and enjoy. So that's part, like I hear a lot about dating. I thought I was going to like this guy and blah blah blah. I said, look, everyone needs to lower their expectations, even whether it's for an event, a party, a meeting, and I talk through some of that in the Great Expectations Today, because I talk about the experiences that happened to me where I was going to a meeting and I thought this was something was going to happen. And I built it up in my mind, which sometimes can be our worst enemy to say, oh yeah, this could happen and this could happen. but we don't look at what may not happen.
Mm.
So in sales, we always play the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
You know, you're going into a deal, you think you're going to close the deal. Well, what might that prospect say that might not or might be against my proposal? What could he say that would prep me to have a better meeting? And if you think of things kind of in that way versus like when you're going on a trip, you know, you're going to the airport. Is your Uber guy going to be on time? You never know. Will you get there on time? Will you get there in time enough to make, you know, stand in the TSA line? Will you get through in time to be at the gate to have a cup of coffee? Maybe to go to the bathroom, whatever. But all of that is you know, you're setting your expectations like, hey, I'm gonna get to the airport, I'm gonna get on the plane, we're gonna take off, I'm gonna get there and meet my friends. Well, the plane could be late, weather could occur.
Yeah.
You know, I've had so many of those things happen that people don't think about. I think one of the first stories I tell in the book is about a guy I used to travel with, the bull in the china shop, and he used to get so upset about the plane being late. And I'm like, you can't control the weather. You can't control the people flying the plane. You can't control, you know, I've seen fights happen on planes where they stopped the flight, brought on the police, carried somebody off, and we were late by a couple of hours. So if we set the proper expectations, we don't get anxiety, we don't get a high blood pressure, we don't get depression. And then toward the end of my book, the last few chapters, I do talk about anger and you know, managing anger, which is also a big deal.
Yeah. It's interesting though. It's like a both side is always like it makes me thinking like who is actually right. Like when you talk to like Tony Robbins, he always talk about like have a bigger expectation, also like have like a big goals you can conquer it and everything. On the same time, like life is so uncertain. We don't know like tomorrow how it's gonna pan out. Like we gonna be live tomorrow or not. How my spouse gonna react tomorrow, how my child gonna react tomorrow, how my business gonna be. Like a pandemic came 2020, like probably everyone had a big expectation 2020. We're gonna conquer it, right? And then whole year is like kind of lockdown. A lot of businesses gone out of business. So coming from that, like what do you think? Like should we still have a big goals, big plans, or how do you actually go about that? Like the whole situation.
Yeah, those, man, I'll tell you what, you hit the nail on the head. I have so many, especially young women in my group that say, yeah, well, you know, I was listening to this podcast and Tony Robbins, and I was really getting charged up. I went to this meeting and we had a speaker, and, you know, well, there are expectations,
Yeah.
and then they can really slap you upside the head with reality. Because no matter what you do, say you're going to a party, you get in your car and you leave, and you know you're thinking, okay, it'll be 20 minutes, I know where it's at. You get on the highway and there's an accident.
Yeah.
You can get so upset with that. Or on the other hand, you could say, oh, I hope nobody's hurt. You know, you can take a different spin on it to make your life happier. I mean, I'm in sales. We get pumped up all the time by stuff going on, but I know what the reality is. I've still got to find out when my prospect is buying and what they're, you know, what deal with their reality,
Yeah.
which impacts me. That's a big cause of anger. You see so much road rage. You know, you had during COVID, you had the mask thing and people fighting on planes. It's just because of misset expectations. If things are happening, things are not going to happen the way they've always happened. And no matter how much you get charged up about it, yeah. I have a very positive outlook on life. I'm just saying, set the proper expectations so you don't become overcome with depression and anxiety, high blood pressure. I mean, there's so many people out there today. I mean, drug use and alcoholism is on a really big run right now. It's at a peak.
Yeah.
And that was another reason I wrote my book, because, you know, quite frankly, some people talk about that, and suicide is way up there also.
Yeah.
So what's the reasoning for all this? Some of it, I think, depends on setting proper expectations for anything you do. and really knowing where you stand and what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With my experience, like last 5 years, I noticed that like I've been following like Tony Robbins. I follow all of them gurus on the internet, and I always set high goals all the time. And most of the time, I'll be hitting 40 to 50% of my goal, my business revenue goals. And we always couldn't hit that like how we wanted. The last 5 years, we couldn't do that. That's not because like we're not trying. That's not because we had like a we're not motivated enough. It's still not because COVID came, like we shook up everyone's businesses. Like even though we are doing online businesses, a lot of businesses didn't want to do marketing. Like we don't know how things gonna pan out. People are doing like one-on-one meetings. They need to be online. So a few months here and there, it just gone with a shock. A lot of people lost their families. A lot of people lost their revenue. So not everyone able to hire us as a marketing agency that time. And then the year after came along, then we blessed with our first child, and he was in ICU for 6 weeks. Then he came home. We needed a lot of attention with them, so I couldn't do my business. So I couldn't focus on my work. I probably worked 6 months out of them,
Yeah.
whole 12 months. So then last year came along, then I thought I'm gonna conquer it again. I had a big expectation, big goals. Then my health came plateau, like it's gone really, really down. Then we hit a plateau, like it's not getting better for like a few months. So I couldn't hit my revenue goal. Then I realized with my son, like I put my expectation is so low with him because he came from like a from he's not gonna make it to right now, like developing is nearly 2 years old. He's doing absolutely fine. It's just a few problem, like he's just behind on physical development. He can't walk yet, but he's under physio. But with him, like I always lowered my expectation. I was like, as long as he's alive, I'm happy with that. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what is there. So anything else, like he's not developing well, or he's like just behind or physical health wise, it doesn't bother me. I don't get upset. But with my business wise, I'll get upset. I get like anxious times and times. Like
Right.
my expectation was 500,000 a year on a revenue. I just hit 250. So that's not
Yeah.
something I wanted to be there. I wanted $1 million in revenue. So how do I stay positive in that circumstance, or shall I still hit them kind of goals, like a big goals? Or what would be your advice on that? A lot of
Yeah.
people.
I mean, hey, I'm in sales.
Yeah.
I set monster goals for myself. But I know what reality is. And all I'm saying in this book is if you look at your goals, you set your goals, you need to always make sure you've got reality in check. And part of reality is knowing that things change. So like I have a skincare business as a kind of a side hustle.
Mhm.
I bought it 5 years ago, and every year we grew quite a bit. When COVID hit, I had the worst thoughts in mind that it was going to be terrible. Quite frankly, my business doubled because people were at home and they were probably looking at themselves in the mirror,
Yeah.
going, "Hey, I got a zit here, I got a wart here. My dog's got a wart." And so they were ordering like crazy. So my business almost doubled during COVID. And then I was thinking to myself, well, this could go do really well. I could keep growing. Well, then after COVID, my business dropped because people were going back to work and they weren't paying as much attention to their skin again. They weren't just sitting around inside. So I think we all have to envision the best or
Yeah.
dream for the best. But like in sales, we have what's called a reverse sales plan. So you say, okay, I think I can close this in 2 months. Okay, now let's back it up and say, okay, what do I need to do to close it in 2 months? And what could happen? Play the devil's advocate. What could happen that my prospect, and everybody knows that time kills all deals. So you want to make it faster, but does your prospect want to go faster? So just, you've got a forecast and you're throwing a number out there, and management's pushing you to throw a number out there, but then you're sitting there and got to go, hey guys, these are the things that could happen.
Yeah.
So the reality is, the problem is on our day-to-day life, it's a lot easier for me to do for our business than it is for my life, because in my life, things happen, like your son.
Yeah.
I've got a daughter, and she's had a few health issues, and that's always very scary. And there's nothing you can do about it other than be there for them. And that's when you kind of realize that some of these expectations are not real. They're not real in life. And we really need to, to think about it. I live in San Antonio. We're called military city in the United States, in North America. We have a lot of people here that have served in the military, which, you have to respect that and for their time, thank them for their time. But a lot of them have PTSD, and that is something they deal with continually. And in certain situations, that explodes where they need to be, and in their mind they just go off, and because of that PTSD, they suffer more anger, more depression, more anxiety. And I also wrote the book for people like that to take a look at it, because in my groups I have a lot of veterans that have served from Vietnam to Afghanistan to what's going on today. So I asked them, hey, from a perspective of anger management, some key questions like, do you enjoy getting angry? That's the first question I asked. And they're always like, well, it's just something that happens, and then I don't know what to do. But do I enjoy getting angry? No, I don't enjoy getting angry, because it affects the people around me, and it affects my situation.
Yeah.
And I say, well, does it ever produce the intended results that you wanted? And they go, oh, no, it's never a good thing. I'm like, yeah. I say, well, could you get the same results in a more effective way? Could you think about it a little bit, or count to 20, or do anything that might be more effective than just blowing up? And they go, well, yeah, I probably could. And I said, well, how would you be different if you could control your anger? And I'd be a much better person. And so those are the things that we talk about when I'm talking someone through, well, how did you feel when you got angry? Because it's always a disappointment. And they always, matter of fact, it puts them in a worse depressive point than they ever were to start with, because they exploded. And I tell some stories in the book about that, and just being here in San Antonio, some of the things I've witnessed, because we have a lot of people that blow up on really minor things that, they didn't set their expectations. They got into a situation and they got angry. They got mad. They physically violated someone, So those are just, some of the things that I highlighted in my book. And,
Yeah.
If someone wants to take a read, that's my experiences.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So we are coming to the end of this podcast, Mr. Daryl. So those who's listening, if anyone wants to get your book or learn more about yourself, where is the best place to find you?
Amazon. I'm on Amazon. Just look up Great Expectations Today by D. Tanner, and I've got an author profile out there, and everything's there.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much for your time today, coming to this podcast and sharing about your book. So I wish you best of luck with your book and your personal life, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead.
And you also. Thank you.
Thank you. You're most welcome. So wrap, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and got some value from it. So if you want to read this book, go on Amazon and get the copy of the book and learn more about Daryl as well. So until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.